Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
I do believe that we do complement each other in special ways. I do believe that we are enough in and of ourselves, yes. But I also believe that God puts us together with someone that can speak into our lives where iron will sharpen iron. And I think that's the primary purpose of marriage, is to conform all of us to the image of Christ. And no one can do that better outside the Holy Spirit than a husband or a wife.
Today with Jeff Vines, pastor, apologist, and Bible teacher.
Hi, and welcome to Today with Jeff Vines. On this episode, we're talking about marriage. Pastor Jeff says this message is not just for married people. Looking at marriage helps us to understand what the love of God is like. You can find all messages wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for Today with Jeff Vines. Here's Pastor Jeff and how to fix your marriage.
I'm in Genesis chapter 29, and before we move on, again, we're in this series called How to Fix Your Marriage, and we've said from the get-go that every principle you learn concerning our love relationship with each other comes ultimately from our love relationship with God. So whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're thinking about getting married, whether you've been divorced and now you're thinking, okay, do I get married again? No matter where you are in the spectrum of things, the reality is anytime you hear a series on marriage that is based in the Word of God, it's going to give you principles of not only your relationships with each other, but obviously in your relationship with God, which is the ultimate relationship, the most important relationship of all. So it kind of concerns me when people see a series on marriage and they suddenly think, well, because I'm not married, I don't want to be married because I'm single. This doesn't apply to me. I promise you that if you'll go through this series, everything we talk about somehow applies not only to your relationships, not only in marriage, but just friendship, but also ultimately in your relationship with God. Now, it's essential that we do not forget what we covered last week. We said the greatest contributor to broken marriages can be summed up in two words: unrealistic expectations. And I use the example because Robin will tell you, my wife, that she went into the marriage thinking she was marrying James Bond, but instead she got Johnny English. And she's so right. I was totally clueless, and most people are when they get married, unless they've done some serious homework. The most damaging unrealistic expectation is when we look at our spouse to save us. And we call that the romantic solution. The belief that if we can just find that one true love, that all our feelings of insignificance, purposelessness, and meaninglessness will somehow dissipate. So people have a very difficult childhood or a very difficult home life. Maybe they suffered abuse growing up. Maybe there was sibling abuse. They have these feelings of nobodiness. Maybe an overwhelming sense of failure. They were neglected by their parents. Maybe there was favoritism of a brother or sister over them. And suddenly they look out into the world, and as they get older, they think, if I can just escape this family, if I can escape these relationships and find my one true love or one true soulmate, then I'll never have any more problems. That's called the romantic solution, and it's disastrous. Both Jacob and Leah employed the romantic solution to their lives. Jacob believed that Rachel would be his savior. Leah believed Jacob would be hers. It's only Leah in the story that discovered that there's only one that's big enough to fill your heart and soul, and that's God. And once she figured that out, then she could relate on a different level to her husband Jacob. That's another story for another time. But what we said ultimately is that you cannot be right with someone else until you are right with yourself. And you cannot be right with yourself until you are right with God. And then we finished that message with this overarching truth that if your marriage is in trouble, lean into God first and allow Him to change you before you begin to attempt to change someone else. This is true of any relationship. When you lean into Jesus, God will give you, through His Holy Spirit, the ability to see your spouse as God sees them, and also give you a glimpse into the realities of your own life. And you'll find yourself giving a lot more grace to your spouse, and you'll find yourself working on you so that you might be better equipped in this marriage situation. So there's more to talk about. We'll cover that, as I said, in the messages to come. But for right now, I want to take a pause for a second. We're going to go back in time, which is something we rarely do from the story. We usually go forward. We're going to go back in time now to a story that Jacob either did not know or intentionally ignored. Because now we're going to go back to Jacob's father, who is Isaac, who's the son of Abraham and Sarah. Remember, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And let me read to you the text in Genesis chapter 24, a fantastic story when Abraham sets out to find a wife for his son Isaac. Okay, here we go. Abraham, verse 1, was now very old. The Lord had blessed him in every way. He said to his senior servant in his household, the one in charge of all that he had, "Put your hand under my thigh." Now let me just address that quickly. This is symbolic of God's covenant. Remember, God's promise to Abraham was that his seed would be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. And circumcision was the way you identified as part of God's covenant and His promise. So when you placed your hand under another person's thigh, you were getting close to the promise and the covenant that God had made. So in effect, you were saying, whatever I promise you, may it be as solid as the promise God has given us in the covenant. That's a huge promise. So Abraham said to his servant Eleazar, "Put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I'm living." We'll talk about that in a moment. Verse 4, "But will go to my country and my own relatives and get a wife for my son Isaac." The servant asked him, "What if the woman is unwilling to come back with me to this land? Shall I then take your son back to the country you came from?" "Make sure that you do not take my son back there," Abraham said. "The Lord, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household in my native land, and who spoke to me of the promise, or promised me an oath, saying, 'To your offspring I will give this land,' he will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there." Then the servant left, taking with him 10 of his master's camels loaded with all kinds of good things from his master. He set out for Aram Naharaim and made his way to the town of Nahor. He had the camels kneel down near the well outside the town. It was toward evening, the time the women would go out to draw water. Then he prayed, "Lord God of my master Abraham, make me successful today and show kindness to my master Abraham. See, I am standing beside this spring, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. May it be that when I say to a young woman, 'Please let down your jar that I may have a drink,' and she says, 'Drink, and I'll water your camels too,' let her be the one that you've chosen for your servant Isaac. By this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master." Before he had finished praying, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder. She was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. Verse 17, the servant hurried to meet her and said, "Please give me a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she said, and quickly lowered the jar to her hands and gave him a drink. After she had given him a drink, she said, "I'll draw water for your camels too, until they have had enough to drink." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran back to the well to draw more water, and drew enough for the camels. Verse 21, without saying a word, the man watched her closely to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. Then he asked, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" She answered him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, bore to Nahor." And she added, "We have plenty of straw and fodder, as well as room for you to spend the night." Then the man bowed down and worshiped the Lord, saying, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not abandoned his kindness and faithfulness to my master. As for me, the Lord has led me on the journey to the house of my master's relatives." I love that text, that narrative. Young men, young women, I want you to notice something. When Abraham wanted to find a wife for his son Isaac, he is very strategic. First, Isaac was not the only one involved in the process. This is absolutely pivotal. A trusted servant and a praying father played a vital role in the selection of the bride. Let me tell you something about this dude, Eleazar. Eleazar is truly remarkable man and friend. He is 85 years old, and his master Abraham is asking him to make a 450-mile expedition back into Mesopotamia. And these are the days when, man, he's walking 450 miles just to go back to Abraham's home. He makes the ultimate oath by touching the thigh. And Eleazar, had Isaac not found a wife, Or had Isaac never been born? Because you remember the miraculous circumstances around Isaac's birth, that Abraham and Sarah were both old in age, did not think they could have a child. Had they not had a child, Eleazar would have inherited everything from Abraham. And now here is Eleazar not only serving Abraham, but is so invested in Abraham's success that he's willing now to do whatever it takes to serve his son Isaac. In verse 10, Eleazar wants to please his master so desperately that he gets on his knees and he prays to God. He said, "O Lord," verse 12, "the God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show loving kindness to my master Abraham." So why do we need a father and a trusted servant? Here's the answer. When we begin dating, typically we tend to get our hearts in such a deep flutter that our mind is not functioning anymore, especially guys who are completely sight-oriented. When I think about this, I go back to my own life and I think, my goodness, my life could have turned out so differently. I could have gone in a totally different direction. Because as I have shared before I met my wife, Robin, I was in a relationship with another girl for 4 years. And during that time, all my friends, my pastor, my parents kept coming to me and saying, "What are you doing? This is not the girl God has for you." But I was so overwhelmed with the externals, even though I knew she had no passion for God. Now, she claimed to be a Christ follower, but you couldn't tell that in the way she lived her everyday life. She had an extraordinary passion for money, for stuff. That was the ultimate in her life, and I was getting sucked into the relationship quite quickly. Even my secular friends on my basketball team came to me. Now, these aren't God-fearers, but they knew that I was, and they said, "Look, Vines, what are you doing, man? God's hand is clearly on you. It's not on us. Why are you with this girl? Why are you dating her?" And I got to tell you, I made every excuse in the book because I didn't want to end this relationship. Even in my own family, my grandmother said that my grandma Bessie, who was, she was such a dedicated, committed follower to Jesus, and I've spoken about her in the past. She basically said to me, "Jeff, this girl's evil." My grandpa even said, "She'll suck the life right out of you." And my mother would just sit and cry. But I ignored all of them. And finally something happened that opened my eyes, at least started to, as my father came to me and said, "Jeff, is this really what you want?" And then he asked me, "Have you prayed and asked God about this?" And the answer is no, because I knew what God would say. I knew in my heart if I went to God, God would say no. I was 18. My brain was not fully developed. My hormones were flying off the charts. Is that an excuse? Do you know how often a young man and a young woman between the age of 18 and 24 makes a decision that ruins the rest of their lives? It's all too common. In fact, in reading about this past week, there's been an 82% increase in drunk driving fatalities among the age or under the age of 21. Now in America, if there's a fatality in drunk driving, there's a good chance you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. So you think about that. I make one decision, I have far too many drinks, I decide to drive, and I'm not thinking clearly, and I've ruined the rest of my life. I want to stop here just a moment. This is a crucial point to make. You and I are saved by grace through faith. I understand that. We've been adopted into the family of God. God is a loving, caring, giving Father. However, He is also a Father who disciplines us. Hebrews chapter 12, once again, verse 4 through 6. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. That's the struggle against sin. That's how difficult it is. And have you completely forgotten the word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son? My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline. Do not lose heart when He rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one He loves, and He chastens everyone who accepts Him as son. Now, some of you are thinking right now, wow, it feels like we've gone off the page. The reason I'm choosing to talk about this now is because I have your attention. In any arena of life, when the Spirit convicts you, no matter what age, doesn't matter what age, if you're the age of accountability, and you ignore it, do you really think there will be no ramifications? Of course there are. And what's happening to so many Christ followers across the spectrum of age who claim to be Christ followers and who are telling me that sleeping with someone before you're married is a matter of personal choice. Yeah, but it's a really bad one because God says no. It's a violation of design, and there are spiritual and emotional and physical ramifications that you cannot see. So someone will say to me, show me in the Bible where it says I can't sleep with someone before I'm married to them. Okay, well, let me just give you 2 of the 30 verses in the New Testament alone. 1 Corinthians 6:18, flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. You say, wait a minute, that doesn't say anything about sex before marriage. The word translated sexual immorality all through the New Testament is the word porneia. And porneia refers to any sexual activity outside of heterosexual marriage between a man and a woman. That's what sexual immorality means, unless you're married. Any sex, any activity outside of a marriage between a man and a woman in the context of marriage is referred to as sexual immorality. So people who have sex or sleep together before marriage are committing sexual immorality. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3, but among you there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality or of any kind of impurity or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. So porneia is a catch-all term for any sexual activity outside of heterosexual marriage. Now, why do you think that you can casually engage in an activity like this? Now, look, I know people make mistakes. I got it. I know you're put in a situation at some point and you fail. I know that God's grace is larger than any of our sin. True. However, when you have a cavalier attitude toward this and you think, well, I'm just going to live this way, God will forgive me in His grace, that's when you suffer the consequences. Either you think you know better than God, or you don't think Jesus is worth knowing, following, or obeying, or you just don't care. And if that's true, why would you think that you can dishonor God in your dating relationships and then call upon Him in expectation that He would honor your marriage? That's not the way it works. Not the way it works. And if you're in a relationship like this, I encourage you to repent, to stop, to go the other way, walk 180 degrees in the other direction, and honor God beginning today, that He may honor you in your marriage. Now back to the story. Abraham's employment of his trusted servant shows us that the first question every person should ask before they marry, question 1 is, does my spiritual mentor approve? I used to say father or mother, but that's no longer good enough, because we're now in a generation where many young people are following Jesus and their parents are not. So first of all, thank God if your parents are Christ followers. My goodness, that blessing is immeasurable. And if you have them, in heaven's name, listen to them. I remember kneeling down in my daughter Sion's room from the time, basically, she was 2 or 3 years old, and every night I would come in until the time she graduated high school, and I would just get on my knees and pray. My daughter would say, hey, Dad, what are you doing? I said, never mind, you just relax. I'm praying for your future husband. I've been praying for a long time. Now, I had to stop announcing that I was doing that, because when I came to CCV, one and all, I've had young men come up to me and say, hey, God sent me. He has answered your prayer for your daughter. And I said, hold on a second. It doesn't work that way. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. How much better than a loving Christian parent? Daughters, listen, especially when the second party is your father. Now, it may be a spiritual mentor if your father or your mother are not believers, but still yet they have something to say. We'll get to that. But here's the reason you should listen to a Christian father, because he cares just as much about who you marry than you do. If he's a believer, again, chances are high that he's been praying for the right guy for a long time. And guys know guys. We look for things. Does he look me in the eye? We have a built-in character discernment that God gave us. Slothfulness and drivenness, we have a detector. We have a baggage detector, and it's all God-given. And some of you young girls may say, yeah, but Jeff, dads are old. Well, that's my point exactly. Job 12:12 says, is not wisdom found among the aged, the old? Does not long life bring understanding? So the point I'm making is that if you have a Christ follower in a mom and dad, man, you are blessed. Listen to your trusted advisor. Everyone All of us need accountability partners, spiritual mentors, growth groups, because they serve as objective insights. All of us, and I go back to my day, we have blind spots that we can't see. We need each other. And these are not friends who attempt to control you. They are friends who have your best interest in mind, who can help you look at things objectively. So those seeking to marry, no matter what age, allow your parents to weigh in, not dictate, but to weigh in, especially if they love God, especially if your dad listens to God. And it's so unwise to ignore a Christian dad or mom. They're trying to save you. So question 1, do my parents or spiritual mentors approve? Now here's the second question. Is there spiritual compatibility? In chapter 24, verse 3, I want you to swear by the Lord, says Abraham, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites. Now, this isn't racism. This is about spiritual compatibility, because the Canaanites were not Yahweh worshipers. In fact, they were horrific in their practices of sacrificing young children on the molten altars of Moloch. So Abraham says, make sure that you find someone who has the same love and passion for Yahweh that we do. Verse 13, behold, here I stand by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let it be that the young woman to whom I say, please let down your pitcher that I may drink. And she says, drink, and I will also give your camels drink. Let her be the one that you've appointed for your servant Isaac. And by this I will know that you have shown kindness to my master. Now here, why this scenario? Hospitality was the highest value in the villages of Abraham's day. Hospitality required giving water to a thirsty stranger, but not to the animals. So a woman who would be willing to give water to both the stranger and the animals would be unusually kind and would have a keen understanding of the heart of God. So Eleazar is looking for someone who not only knows God, but who's been changed or transformed by God in her relationship with Him. Knowledge and transformation, not just knowledge. Now, marrying someone whose heart does not belong to Jesus is like bungee jumping off the Victoria Falls Bridge. You go back and forth as the rope catches and snatches back upward. Back and forth. The only difference is when you're married to someone who does not share your same passion for God, there's this overwhelming desire not to come back up to the platform. Part of you wants to cut the rope. But you know you can't hang upside down forever, and you know you can't cut the rope because you can't swim with the hippos. So you have to come back again and again. You will be in a situation in your life where your heart is torn and there's no escape. Do you want a person to look into your heart and see the most important thing to you and not get it? Now, I don't know. I'm trying to say this in the simplest way that I can. But I believe that Christians have the best intimacy on the planet with each other, husband and wife. And the reason I believe that is because when you truly know the deepest part in each other and you share that passion, that brings you closer and closer together in intimacy, true intimacy. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about intimacy that includes closeness and oneness in every aspect of marriage.
You've been listening to Today with Jeff Vines. Thanks for joining us. Next time, we'll bring you the rest of this message from Pastor Jeff.
This idea of knowledge, this idea of really understanding each other. Intimacy is intensified by the knowledge of one another. Intimacy stagnates by the lack of knowledge. Complete intimacy corresponds to complete knowledge. The quality of your intimate experiences corresponds to the depth at which you share your identity and know the identity of your spouse.
You can listen to more messages like this. Just search for Today with Jeff Vines wherever you get your podcasts.
You make me wanna dance and sing with every single breath I breathe. I will bring this offering. You are my wonder, you with the wonder.
Today with Jeff Vines.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.